Welcome to Reddit Stories. This is my second attempt. It's going to be a little bit different than the first one. I'm still working on the format. Reddit Stories is something that I'm going to do between larger projects to kind of rest my creative mind, because working on the larger videos takes a lot of time and energy, and I don't really feel like I get anything else done when I'm working on them. So I need something simpler in between projects. I teased it at the end of the Elden Ring video that the next video game series that I'm going to cover is the Witcher series, and it's going to be more in line with how I did the Heroes video. Probably not going to be 3 hours long though. I'm also thinking of doing more Heroes content, maybe cover the Dark Messiah, as it's been suggested in the comments that it's a continuation of the Heroes 5 story. But my thoughts now is that I'm going to cover that story together with a coverage of Olden Era. I want to thank everybody who watched my Heroes video and those who liked it and commented on it. I appreciate all of you. It's got a way bigger response than I thought it would. Thank you all so much. So with that out of the way, let's read some Reddit stories. Starting with a story from the subreddit r/Creepyencounters titled, I was almost kidnapped. 3 years ago, I, female 20 at the time, was traveling to Monterrey, Mexico by myself to visit family. I took a flight from Denver and had a layover for 2 hours in the Dallas airport. During my layover, I met a lady, around 27 to 30 years old. She was also traveling to Monterrey. We talked for those 2 hours. She told me that she just dropped off her kids with their dad and she was going back home to Monterrey. She also asked me questions about me, where I was from and who I was going to see in Mexico. Once we boarded the plane, our seats were far apart from each other, so I thought that was the end of that. Until we landed in Monterrey. I was outside waiting for my dad to pick me up. She came up to me and told me she was waiting to get picked up as well. She then started acting weird, asking if I could go with her to buy something to eat. I told her, yeah, let's go back inside the airport, which she said no. She suggested to go to a gas station that was just outside the airport. I told her I couldn't because my family was about to arrive, but she was insistent about it, and even told me she would buy me some food. So I decided to start walking with her. Very stupid of me, I know. But I was walking super slow because I knew something was off. Luckily, right when we started walking towards the gas station, my dad showed up. Once she realized that he was my dad, she immediately took off. My dad asked who she was and that she seemed suspicious. I told him the whole story and he said there is no gas station or stores anywhere near the airport. Comments: OMG, that is awful. Don't ever feel obligated to walk with a strange woman or man anywhere. Never mind a strange place that you don't know the layout of. Go ahead and be rude. Hurt their feelings, firmly shout loudly, I said no! And you're making me uncomfortable. Then turn and head right into the airport and hang around near security until your ride shows up. Your safety and life depends on it. This post has since been deleted. It doesn't really look fake to me, as the previous story I read did. Maybe some internet sleuth found out who she is and contacted her, which... don't do that. Next up, this post was originally posted to the unpopular opinion subreddit and then reposted to Am I the Devil subreddit with the headline, and they get mad when we say Nazi. The original title of the post is The Great Replacement Theory isn't a theory, it's mathematically self-evident. Let's get into it. Just to be clear, because this is Reddit and unless you explicitly add a disclaimer, people will fill in the gaps themselves. I'm not a Nazi, a conspiracy theorist, and I don't wish ill towards anyone who's non-white, etc. You know when they start like that it's gonna be good. If they add the disclaimer, I'm not a Nazi, it's going to be the most racist thing you ever heard. With that out of the way, the Great Replacement Theory isn't a theory, it's actually extremely easy to prove with math that even a 5-year-old can understand. It's good that they brought up math for 5-year-olds because I think he has the mental capacity of 5-year-olds. Look at my own nation, for example. the UK. Our native population have an average birth rate of 1.44 children per couple. That is not enough to maintain a population, never mind grow it. Immigrants, however, particularly from places like India, Sub-Saharan Africa and the Middle East, all have children comfortably above that replacement level, some as high as 5 children per couple on average. The data also show that they have more children in Western nations compared to their own, likely due to various welfare systems and comparatively safer environments to raise children. Yeah! I mean, you're onto something here. You've just come to the completely wrong conclusion. Combine this with the recent explosion in immigration, both legal and illegal, to Western nations, and you have a trend that cannot be denied. If things carry on along this path, and we exasperate it over time, many demographic groups, including my own, will be replaced. It's not a theory, it's math. It quickly becomes a matter of when, not if. And again, to be clear, I'm not trying to make a political point here. I'm not claiming to know why this is happening and who is orchestrating it. This is purely about demographic reality, not things we cannot prove. Someone in the comments says, TBF. The theory is centered around there being malicious intent by whichever those people they hate and not. Maybe the enterprise of having kids in Western countries suck ass due to keeping up with Jones. And here's my comment. You can approach this from a standpoint of logic. Mathematics isn't logical. You can find statistics to prove any point, even if from a logical standpoint it's incorrect. People who drive yellow cars are more likely to get cancer later in life, for example. Don't quote me on that, I just made that up. 100% of people who breathe air will die before they reach the ripe old age of 123. As the oldest person who took at least one breath of air, who we can confirm the age of, only made it to 122 years old. So based on that statistic, and no other knowledge on top of it, we can conclude that breathing air is deadly. The great replacement theory falls apart very easily, with a few simple questions. Who would orchestrate this? When did it start? What are they hoping to gain? Do you honestly think that people who immigrated to the UK legally or illegally are now in a position where they can encourage people who are from the same country and belief set as them to have more children, and discourage people from the country they immigrated to who do not subscribe to the same belief set as them from having children, or encourage them to have fewer? Or might it be that people who have experienced an extended period of welfare and safety have different priorities than people who have just gained welfare and safety, getting an education, a better job, and that eventually things will level out? And that the children of the immigrants will have about the same amount of children as the people whose parents were born in the UK. You're onto something with the fact that they have less children in their own country, probably experiencing war and poverty. When they come to the UK, it's safe to have children. You can look at this through the lens of history. If you're familiar with the generation called the baby boomers, and look into why they call the baby boomers, it might very easily explain why people who have experienced war might end up having more children than people who have lived in relative safety their whole lives. The baby boomers are the children of people who experienced World War II. They went from a war period with very little safety and welfare. They were stuck in poverty, they had very little to eat, so having children at that time didn't make sense. Now, when the war was over, they suddenly entered an era of prosperity and safety. They ended up having loads of children. Humans might be wired in a way where if you go from a period of war and uncertainty to safety and prosperity, we respond with having lots of children, hence baby boom. Moving on, let's end on a feel-good story. To the woman near Liverpool Street. On February 26th, my mother and I were in a side street near Liverpool Street Station. We were going to take a train to Stansted and from there catch a flight to Germany to see family for a few days. Mum, 86, originally Scottish, but spent her early years in Berlin, returning to study in Dundee. As we walked to the station, Mum stumbled and fell. She sat on the ground for a few moments and then, feeling foolish, laughed. A woman walked over. She was nicely dressed in a suit and a raincoat, but still sat on the ground with my mum. She introduced herself and had an NHS ID card. She asked Mum a few questions. As she said, Mum didn't trip or slip on wet floor. She got her to squeeze her hand, smile and lift her eyebrows. Then she asked another bystander who had got water to call an ambulance. She left quickly as soon as the ambulance arrived, as she was attending a conference. She joked all she would miss was safety talk. Mum had a stroke. The doctors later told me, if it hadn't been for the intuition and willingness to put her day on hold, the outcome would have been very different. I honestly can't bring myself to think that we might have rested for a spell and continued to Stansted. I hope someone sees this and can pass on my thanks and tell her what an extraordinary person she is. We were truly blessed to have her there at that moment. God bless you. You were absolutely heaven sent. Someone in the comments says, I got a feeling that most doctors/nurses are never truly off duty. I got hit by a car while cycling a few years back. Fortunately quite near a large London hospital, and within minutes I had a couple of medics around me. We need to appreciate these people more. And on that very positive note, that's the end of this Reddit Stories video. Thank you very much for listening. If you have a Reddit story that you want me to read, message it to me on my Reddit page. You can find it in the description of this video.